Alright guys, we're gonna watch this. One of you guys posted this on the React channel, and it looks interesting. What is it about? You will find out.
A popular video game your children may have come across. It is free, it is online, and it allows kids to... We have to warn you, these images are pretty disturbing.
On
the screen to sob back and forth to remove the head. God.
This is not for kids. This is adult entertainment.
Video games first started as a niche hobby, uncommon to the general public. Now there are more than 3 billion gamers in the...
Wait, is this gonna, like... Are we gonna, like, address, like... PETA's version of Pokemon? And some of these other things where it's like, this is obviously, like, a super, like, graphic game pretending to be a kid game.
The world, almost half of the human population. You probably grew up playing video games at an early age, but playing games isn't always a positive experience. Sometimes they can give you nightmares, or in some situations leave you scarred for life. Today we'll be looking at kids games that are too disturbing for kids, and as we go deeper we'll uncover just how dark video games can really get. As always, I hope you guys have an absolutely marvelous week. The Cursed Baby Panda Game. The panda is one of the cutest animals in the world, which also happens to be the mascot of a YouTube channel for kids, Baby Bus. In their description, Baby Bus provides intelligent early childhood educational content for kids up to 6.
Oh, hell no. Some of these YouTube channels that are made specifically for kids are warped as heck. You guys don't realize, I was one of the first people in my family to realize, like, because we used to be a foster family, and I was taking care of my little sister. Like, I was, like, hanging out with her, and I just looked over her shoulder at one of the videos she was watching on the phone that Mama let her use. And it was Spider-Man giving birth. And I was like, ah! And I went to Mom, I'm like, you should be letting her watch this stuff. And she's like, what? And I'm like, Spider-Man's giving birth on this and stuff like this. And she got so upset with me, and because Mom wanted to see the phone and went to see what was going on. And then I scrolled through the video a little bit and I found it, and she looked at it, she's like, yeah, you don't need to be watching this. It was hilarious. I was like, what the hell? Like, it wasn't just like, oh, they had a baby. No, it was like the grunts and moans, and like, it was graphic. And it was crazy.
About Baby Bus is how big it really is. On YouTube, Baby Bus has over 130 million
My controller fell.
subscribers across multiple channels. Outside of YouTube, Baby Bus also makes a lot of mobile games targeting children, one of them being Baby Panda Dental Care. Released on April 27th, 2020 on the Google Play Store, Baby Panda Dental Care has over 10 million downloads. The game is rated for a 3-year-old audience and allows players to...
Let me guess, it has something graphic like ripping the tooth out with all the blood gushing, or something in that vein of nature.
Step into the role of a dentist. All patients in the game are cute animals who look for
And on Hush,
you to fix their teeth. The game is really innocent, but Baby Panda Dental Care wasn't always like this. In 2017, Chick World, another kids mobile game developer, released their own version of Baby Panda Dental Care. It had the same name as Baby Bus's game and similar gameplay, but it looks like this. This version of the game has highly unsettling visuals. There's only one patient, a panda with its dirty yet detailed teeth. The end result is an Uncanny Valley-like experience. The Uncanny Valley is used to describe an uncomfortable feeling that we get when something feels human, but it isn't. The panda you meet in the game doesn't look anything like a real panda. It has a mouth that looks human, and its eyes are wide open. Throughout the operation, the panda stares at you without blinking. It already feels creepy enough for adults, so for kids it would be even worse. In 2019, Chick World's Baby Panda Dental Care was removed from the Play Store, but by then it already had over 10,000 installs. The mobile game may be gone, but the browser version...
I remember that, actually. My little sister at the time, this was one of the games she got. She did. Oh my god, a hiccup.
Version can still be played today, rebranded as Cute Panda Dentist Care. These next games, inspired by Disney, are surprisingly not appropriate for a younger Disney-loving audience. The dark influence of Frozen.
Oh god. Frozen's when it really, like, hit YouTube and the App Store. Some of these games and videos were, like, messed up. Like, you think Spider-Man giving birth. How about a bit more graphic version with Elsa giving birth? Or getting murdered. Or getting stripped.
Making content for kids comes with a lot of restrictions, but do it properly and you'll hit the lottery. Look no further than Disney. Both Frozen 1 and 2 ranked in the top 5 highest grossing animated films of all time. From the songs to the merchandise, Frozen is a franchise that shaped the childhood of millions across the world. So many brands took advantage of this and created hundreds of thousands of Frozen merch. The catch, most of them are fake, but these unlicensed goods aren't just physical, they're digital too. Fake Frozen games are everywhere. This is just one example, Snow Queen flying knife. The goal of this game is to toss knives at targets that appear on a rotating wooden circle. But the circle also has Hans, the villain from the first Frozen movie, strapped onto it.
Which, by the way, don't get me into that little conspiracy theory about the end of Frozen.
Hans results in, well, let's just say, really graphic imagery and screaming. But that's not even scratching the surface of how weird these fake Frozen games can get. A lot of these games put players in the role of a surgeon, operating on Frozen characters in a gruesome fashion. Elsa Cesarean Birth,
Yeah.
a game where you have to help
Yeah.
Elsa give birth by cutting to deliver the baby. On top
Yes. Luckily, no kid I know tried to download this, but I saw this and I was like, holy crap.
of the gore, what makes this game even more disturbing for kids is that it's possible to lose the game, suggesting that if you fail, it's possible that the baby or Elsa herself didn't make it. Other games that deal with the health of Frozen characters include Baby Elsa spinal surgery, Frozen Anna brain surgery, and Olaf.
She did play that one though. The spinal surgery one, and I was like, ah!
Eye care. A lot of kids love the Frozen characters, so showing them with serious injuries can leave them pretty uncomfortable. But some of these fake Frozen games are much worse, but we can't talk about those ones or YouTube would be furious.
Oh yeah, there's way worse ones.
Frozen isn't
like I said, there was ones with murder, ones with stripping. It gets graphic.
the only franchise with tons of problematic kids content online, but it is the biggest. On YouTube, there was the Elsagate incident. Hundreds of thousands of YouTube kids videos were discovered as being very inappropriate for kids. But unlike Elsagate, it doesn't seem like these fake Frozen games will be getting banned anytime soon. Yet in the world of disturbing kids games, it's not always gore that makes it problematic.
There's a reason the adpocalypse from the kids side of YouTube was called Elsagate. I told you. Plus the chat. Yeah, there's a reason.
Sometimes just the style of the game itself is enough to give kids nightmares. The truth behind Majora's Mask. For kids growing up in the early 90s, the console war they'll remember was fought by Sega.
This isn't even brain rot. This is like traumatization soup, basically. Like, I freaked out over some of it, and they didn't even show you some of the worst stuff from Elsagate. Because you'd still get banned on YouTube if you showed it.
And Nintendo. But by the end of it, Nintendo won. What made Nintendo different from competitors was its family-friendly image. Nintendo's marketing strategy is the reason why we have huge gaming franchises like The Legend of Zelda. Their popularity is largely thanks to how Nintendo catered their games to a younger audience. But even then, there are some games from Nintendo that players find dark. In the Legend of Zelda series, one of the old classics that still gets discussed to this day is Majora's Mask.
Majora's Mask is not kid-friendly. It's got a lot of, like, traumatizing and, like, dark thematics. The youngest I would let play a Majora's Mask game is probably 14 or 15. Because that would be around when they can start kind of grasping at some of these ideas and it not mess with them cognitively. I would say 15, maybe. Like, it literally is a video game creepypasta.
Considered by many to be the creepiest Zelda game, Majora's Mask haunted the dreams of a lot of its...
Yeah, like, you give kids nightmares if they played this.
But why? To understand why Majora's Mask was so chilling, you have to understand what it was like when the game first came out. The previous entry in the franchise, Ocarina of Time, brought the series into 3D for the first time and became one of the greatest video games of the decade.
He says decade is one of the greatest video games of all time. Based on, like, where it was released, what it did to, like, evolve video games, like, how, like, intuitive it was, plus its story was great. It had a 10 out of 10 in pretty much every single category. I think only 1 or 2 categories got, like, a 9. In my opinion.
Some of the most iconic music in all of gaming, and at the time, it flawlessly captured the grandiose feeling of adventure.
It did, like, very few games really capture that sense of adventure like this game did.
Influenced the path of the entire medium of video games.
To follow up on this historic achievement, Eiji Aonuma, the lead designer of the Zelda games, was given an impossible task. He had to develop the sequel to Ocarina of Time within a year. The stress of this deadline gave him nightmares. According to an interview, it was these nightmares that inspired the dark elements of Majora's Mask. And on April 27, 2000, the game was finally released for the Nintendo 64.
Like, do I love Majora's Mask? Yes. But do I think they should have stressed the hell out of him by making him release it a year later? No.
So from Link being a triumphant hero in Ocarina of Time, how does Majora's Mask kick things off? With Link getting robbed and being transformed into a plant-like creature. Right off the bat, the game has a pretty grim tone, and to make matters worse, there is a time limit that plays an important role in the game.
It deals with some pretty dark stuff, especially at its time of release and for a Zelda game. I mean, you have 3 days to save Termina, or everyone gets crushed by a moon that's inching ever closer by the second.
For a lot of kids who didn't know what they were doing, they were greeted by this bad ending of the moon destroying everything.
Quite a few times, because it makes you go back. The first time it helps you go back, but all the other times, you'll see this scene constantly unless you play that music.
The moon itself is the stuff of nightmares, with an evil face always looking down at the player. The game's depressing atmosphere is thanks to the fact that its world is ending in 3 days. Some characters in Majora's Mask either live in denial or in complete hopelessness. For example, the swordsman at the school says he's not scared of the falling moon and thinks he can cut it into pieces. But in the final 6 hours before the moon falls, if you go to the school, the swordsman barricades himself in a hidden room curled up crying, terrified of what's to come. If you beat the game by saving the world, no matter what you do, there is no happy ending. In the end credits, most of the residents of Termina are celebrating, except the Deku Butler, one of the characters you meet in the game. The game's good ending always shows him mourning the loss of his son. It's grim moments like this throughout the game that fills the player with a sense of emptiness. In the end, Majora's Mask was a game born from the nightmares of its creator and brought to life. Fast forward 20 years later, and the game is still being analyzed by YouTubers to this day.
It's got a lot of, like, hidden messaging and, like, dark, like, thematics.
Mask also inspired Ben Drowned, one of the most...
I'm not a yappy dragon, shut up.
...from the mid-2000s. Surprisingly, Majora's Mask isn't the only Nintendo game inspired by its creators' experiences. The game in our next chapter turns its creators' childhood memories into pure nightmares. The game based on a scarred childhood. While Majora's Mask explores a darker, more mystical world, let's shift gears to something more grounded in reality. This video sponsor, War Thunder. War Thunder is a vehicle combat MMO game with more than 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships.
The way you did this ad, by the way, makes it feel like you're saying War Thunder is that game.
To choose from. These vehicles are legit very realistic. The game has beautiful graphics and sound effects to immerse you in the experience. So when I was a kid, I wanted to become a fighter pilot and spent hours researching fighter jets. I can tell you that War Thunder pays attention to detail. They have a sophisticated vehicle damage model with every vehicle broken down into its specific parts like the engine and fuel tank. The craziest part to me is the damage X-ray. When you get hit, vehicles suffer damage.
It's just the weird place he put the ad.
To their components and the crew inside. Play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox now by using my link in the pinned comment or description. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months get a massive bonus pack. That includes premium vehicles, the Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account. To celebrate the new year 2024, all players can, until the end of January, also claim 3 exclusive Gaijin snail decals to decorate your vehicles. While The Legend of Zelda is a household name at this point, Earthbound doesn't exactly...
Not an alpaca! Hi.
Released on June 5th.
Wait, not alpaca either!
A traditional Japanese role-playing game.
There's a reason they won't remake Earthbound, and it's because of its dark, like, undertones and stuff. I mean, even think for the flesh. But yeah, if you're wondering why they'll never remake it, is like really only adults would buy it.
Game was brought to the Super Nintendo. In Earthbound, you control 4 kids who go on an adventure to save the world. The game looks innocent enough with its colorful environments and quirky humor.
Not an alpaca dragon.
Underneath Earthbound's innocent appearance are...
Well, the fans that want it are older adults and like older people, and they appeal to kids. You gotta realize that that's kind of the reason they won't make it.
Creepy sequences scattered throughout the game. Early on in the game, you'll come across Happy Happy Village. This town is home to the Happy Happiest, a cult whose members look like certain cult members in real life. Later on in the game, you arrive at a location called Moo. Here, one of your party members, named Pooh, have to undergo training by meditating. During the meditation, an ominous face will descend on Pooh, engulfing him. All this happens while a dark ambient track plays in the background. The face will then ask your permission to break Pooh's legs and remove his arms, among other disfiguring acts. Selecting no will cause the player to fail, and they'd have to repeat the meditation from the beginning. Even though it's just text-based, it's pretty chilling, especially for a younger player. It's even more twisted when you remember that Pooh is slightly younger than Ness, who is just 13. But the scene doesn't compare to the terror that is Gygus, the game's final boss. The fight against Gygus is unlike anything gaming has seen before. It doesn't have hype music or a grand stage, just a nightmarish background with distorted sound effects. The fight is divided into 5 stages, each filling the player's soul with dread. What makes this fight so chilling is the image of Gygus itself, which is thought to be based on an unborn child inside the mother's womb.
Oh, that's messed up.
While this theory is later proven to be false, what a lot of Earthbound players didn't know is that the game is based on a childhood experience that...
Not a baka! Not an alpaca! Rawr!
Scarred its creator, Shigesato Itoi.
When he was a child, Itoi went to a movie to catch a flick with some friends, when unfortunately he walked into the wall.
Thank you for the follow! Thank you. Welcome stream of you one of the time bones. Welcome to the Dragon Cave. Alpaca? Albaca?
Not so consensual and advertiser friendly, if you know what I mean.
This
I am getting stabby.
Forever. Later on, as an adult, Itoi drew on the loss of his innocence as inspiration for making Earthbound. While the game is remembered today as a cult classic, it didn't change the fact that it was a deeply disturbing game for kids. And for the developers in our next chapter, their goal isn't to express themselves artistically. Sometimes the goal is to spread propaganda even at the expense of kids. PETA's disturbing propaganda.
Yeah.
Ooh, a challenge. I will turn Boka into an alpaca. For science.
No. Oh, Boka? No. That just sounds dumb. Doesn't even work. But yeah, PETA's probably the biggest to blame because of how messed up these games are that they created.
People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA, is an animal rights group with an interesting history. Online, you can find
I'm 9?
the organization almost everywhere. PETA is known for its outlandish publicity stunt. You might not know this, but surprisingly, they've also made a few video games. A lot of these games are parodies of beloved Nintendo titles. They're free and can be played on PETA's website. But unlike the Nintendo games that they're based on, PETA's versions aren't very kid-friendly. Pokemon Black and Blue is a good example of this. The game's cover art shows Pikachu and other Pokemon injured. The player versus player combat is similar to Nintendo Pokemon games, but very short, with only 4 fights in total. But after the first fight, Nurse Joy, the nurse in all the Pokemon games, will appear to give you a treasure chest. Choosing to accept the treasure chest will open a new tab that plays a video.
That's a pig, Luke! Alright, we're not playing that.
Oh. Okay, so nothing is worse than getting a shock video. Oh, essentially what you have is a shock video here, right?
Yeah.
And then decorating that in a children's video game.
Yeah.
And using that as a mechanism to show and shock people.
Pretty bad.
To try and push off your propaganda. That is up.
PETA repeats this formula in a lot of their parody games. In their second Pokemon parody game, Pokemon Red, White, and Blue, you fight against McDonald's characters. After the first fight, you'll be asked if you want to open a treasure chest, which takes you to an age-restricted video. Besides the video, the gameplay of both Pokemon games isn't too disturbing, but the same can't be said for PETA's Cooking Mama parody game. The original Cooking Mama game is a series of cooking simulators made up of a lot of cute mini-games. PETA's version has you preparing a turkey for Thanksgiving. The game shows a lot of blood and internal organs, and like the Pokemon parodies, it's also linked to an external video.
Cooking Mama's audience is obviously kids, and they very easily could stumble upon this game. And they could just as easily get to the point in this game and then get scarred by this video.
Both Cooking Mama's developer and Nintendo have responded to PETA's versions of their games and decided not to take any legal action against them. The twisted use of propaganda in these children's games disturbed some kids, but in our next game, even adults were terrified about it too. The scariest arcade game ever. Going to the arcade is usually a fun experience for the whole family. With all kinds of genres, there's always a game for everyone. Well, most of the time. Unlike our previous entries, which relied on gore or a creepy atmosphere, this arcade game has gained a legendary reputation for the pure, unfiltered terror.
Well, the issue with taking legal action against PETA isn't that it would be hard. It's that one, it's a non-profit organization. So you have that, like, most companies are like, we're not going to get any money out of this. And then there's the fact that they're, like, very vocal activists. So you doing legal action against them could cause them to just start going and doing worse things. That's kind of why people just voted to ignore PETA, and now it's basically not even a thing. Because they got so ignored.
Many of you might not have even heard of, yet it still managed to scare the life out of countless children and even adults back in the day.
Created by Williams Electronics in 1983, Sinistar is a game where you pilot a spaceship from a bird's eye view. It was revolutionary for being the first sit-down arcade game to have stereo sound. The immersive audio gave it the feeling of sitting inside a cockpit, and thanks to this new technology at the time, arcade goers were blown away by the experience. At first, nothing scary about the game at all. You control your ship with a joystick, firing your laser at things while trying not to get hit. But as you keep playing, you'll hear something.
Before I can see the monster, I can hear him in what must be the most frightening introduction of any character in gaming history.
Just the mere thought of this voice would give me a quiver in my liver, and I would not be able to sleep for days.
Beware, coward. Run, coward.
That was the voice of the game's boss, Sinistar. All of Sinistar's lines were recorded by Chicago DJ John Dormus, except for one line. Sinistar's iconic scream was a lion's roar recorded from a zoo. This was the roar that struck fears in the hearts of countless children back in the 80s. But it wasn't just the voice. Sinistar is one big monstrous face that relentlessly chases the player down. Your spaceship's attacks do not work on Sinistar, and the only way to beat it is to collect the crystals. These crystals turn into weapons called Cinnabombs, which is the boss's only weakness. The game never gave clear instructions on this mechanic, so for a lot of kids playing this back in the day, the sudden appearance of this unbeatable force of nature made their blood run cold. This was also before the internet was a thing, so most players never figured out how to beat Sinistar. Those who do defeat Sinistar will be shocked to learn that he keeps coming back. The game's difficulty and its terrifying reputation ended up costing the developer Williams Electronics. Sinistar did not become a commercial success when it first launched, but decades later, the arcade game now has a huge cult following as a collector's piece. Sinistar is a blast from the past for many adults today. The game,
and even the collectors probably don't play it.
Amazing use of sound set the trend for many horror games today. But sometimes when a business strategy doesn't work, you have to try out new trends that run an entirely different form of inappropriate content.
Oh god. I just saw what's ahead and it's not looking good. Well, yeah, Bert, there's that. But there's also, like I said, it was kind of a catch-22. You attack them, they probably attack you back way worse. And you're not getting money out of them. They're a non-profit, so, like, they weren't making money off of the game or anything, so it was like, it was that kind of issue where they have a whole, like, who knows how many people were behind PETA at first. Now you would probably just shut them down. You'd be like, no. Bam. Because of how small they are now.
The game where you choose your own story. Episode is a free-to-play visual novel-style game where players can read in
I kept getting ads for these at one point.
Interactive short stories. By choosing certain options, they can affect how the story plays out. But what separates Episode from a lot of other visual novel mobile games is its user-generated content, which is in-game content that its users create themselves. The top user-submitted stories even earn their creators money. With over 12 million creators, a lot of them would do anything they can to get clicks. This leads to a lot of questionable content on Episode.
If you go to the App Store, Episode is rated 12+, but some of the stories on the app are just not appropriate. I would be scared to read them as a 12-year-old if that was given to me. Some of them are things that you wouldn't want to see if you're 12 years old.
But it isn't just the users who are coming up with the inappropriate content for the game. Episode itself has a reputation for its weird ads that are not suitable for younger audiences. These ads usually show suggestive scenarios. Episode often advertises its games through other kids' mobile games. Because of this, a lot of kids were exposed to Episode's indecent ads even before getting to play a second of the game. This drew a very angry reaction from parents, since this is how some kids were introduced to the game. So how does Episode make money? Like a lot of other free-to-play games, Episode uses an energy system, which is the type
and you would pay for energy to do stuff. It was one of those games where sometimes it put you in a very bad situation where you'd have to pay for energy to get past it. What?
of currency for the game. Players spend energy to read more content. Once your energy runs out, you can either wait for more or buy energy through the app. But for Episode, their monetization gets a lot worse. Some dialogue options are locked behind a paywall. It doesn't matter how long you wait, the only way to explore these options is by paying with premium currency. Often, this content tends to be the more steamy option, if you know what I mean. So on top of being marketed towards kids,
they did the sex sells to kids.
Episode tries to exploit their curiosity and make them hooked on adult content they shouldn't even be consuming. From its ads to its stories, Episode has an entire ecosystem designed to profit off the undiscovered desires of its young audience. But as if suggestive animated content isn't dark already, this next game takes it one step further. A game based on a disturbing folklore.
Oh god. Not this.
Not all games are created for the sake of enjoyment. Take, for example, the game Cosmology of Kyoto, an educational PC game released in Japan back in 1993 and North America a year.
I don't like that we share a birthday.
Even though it had glowing reviews, the game didn't do well commercially. Cosmology of Kyoto barely had any players, but there were still some kids who stumbled across the game only to get scarred from the experience. Over the years, Cosmology of Kyoto gained a cult following because of just how eerie it was. It's even Guillermo del Toro's favorite game, director of famous films like Hellboy. But just what is it that makes Cosmology of Kyoto so unsettling? To answer that, we have to travel back in time to the Heian period in Japan at around the year 1000. This is when the game takes place, and right off the start, you can feel that something's off.
The illustrations are all gorgeous, with a muted color palette and deep shadows, giving it a dark and creepy edge. The sky in the background and the empty, eerie streets really give this game a forlorn and foreboding feel.
Cosmology of Kyoto doesn't have a clear goal. You can go anywhere you want around the ancient capital of Kyoto, meeting various people and even demons. Depending on how you act in these scenes, your karma will change. It determines which Buddhist hell your character is sent to when you're defeated. This is what terrified kids who played the game back in the day. Most of these hell scenes show your character being tortured by monsters, and depending on which hell you end up in, the scenes can be stomach-turning. Once you leave hell, your character will reincarnate into a different person. Sometimes you'd even reincarnate as a dog. Unfortunately, there's a lot of encounters in the game that can send your character to hell, but if that wasn't inappropriate enough, there's gameplay showing characters exposed. But even with its gruesome imagery, Cosmology of Kyoto can be educational. Every single person you meet in the game is based on real-life accounts or folklore, and you can read up on these details through the game's reference menu.
It's like having an encyclopedia of ancient Kyoto and Japanese history and folklore at your fingertips.
Well, that's kind of interesting. I mean, if it wasn't like slightly geared towards kids, I wouldn't see any problem with it.
Violence and indecent content are captured through Cosmology of Kyoto's unique art style. Others like taking a more real-life approach to video games, making them feel uncanny. The uncanny valley of full-motion video games. 1993 was the year that changed video games forever.
Why is it always my birthday?
Games were starting to become more mainstream, and the public was getting worried. Controversial games like Mortal Kombat caused the U.S.
I'm controversial, guys.
Senate to create the ESRB, which is in charge of age-rating games. But Mortal Kombat's violence wasn't the only thing that politicians debated about back then. Another title that was brought up in the congressional hearings was Night Trap.
The second game is Night Trap, which is a game set in a sorority house. The object is
Night Trap is such a god-awful game.
keep hooded men from the young woman from a hook.
Night Trap is an FMV game, which is short for full motion video game. The game's graphics uses real-life footage of actors, making it an interactive movie of sorts. Because of how realistic the game looked, a lot of people were concerned that the violence that happened on screen was too much for kids. But looking back, the only realistic thing about Night Trap was the fact that it used real people.
Mortal
The game's
Kombat
acting is
invented
poor,
the
and it was
age-rating
designed to
system
be
for games.
exaggerated.
I feel like this game kind of had to deal with that too.
Most players didn't take it seriously.
Night Trap, the most infamous FMV game of all, which had terrible story, acting, sets, light.
Boka, respond. I don't know. You haven't given me a what you want to play yet. We can play anything. We can play. You can run around with me and Lost Epoch, or we can play Path of Exile 2 together.
You've invited me. You had a plan, no?
Well, yes and no. My plan was to let you decide.
Prime Hunt tomorrow.
I would love to, Doctor, but I'm going to be away for 2 days. You're not touching POT, but it's so good now. They fixed a lot of the issues. But we can play Path 1, we can play Lost Epoch, we can play anything you want to play.
Costumes, special effects, and boring gameplay.
But that didn't stop politicians from using Night Trap as...
But yeah, the other reason why you don't hear much about Night Trap is it was such a boring game. It's good now, though. Well... The reason I say that is some of the stuff needed to be, like, buffed. It desperately needed it. I think they've buffed it enough, and I looked at some of the stuff, and it looks better. Why is everyone coming into me during reacts, guys?
The most problematic FMV title at the time. Instead, there was another FMV game that flew under the politicians' radar. A game so dark, it got banned in multiple countries. That game is Phantasmagoria. Released on August 24th.
I've heard of this game. I've never seen it, though.
1995 for the PC. The game puts players in the shoes of a
no, it wasn't. This game came out around the time I was born.
Who has to survive inside a mysterious mansion. Unlike Night Trap, Phantasmagoria's acting was far more realistic. It's a horror game with multiple bad endings. Not only were there a lot of brutal scenes in the game, but there was even one that involved a non-consensual act. Even though the game is completely unsuitable for kids, that didn't stop many of them from playing it. The game's creator, Roberta Williams, felt that Phantasmagoria was unfairly targeted by the media. According to her,
I'm not a boomer, I'm a millennial.
It's because at the time...
Yes, Alan. I'm older than you. Why do you think some of them call me mommy? Ada, ada. Yeah. I've been trying to practice that.
Many people thought of computer games as children's entertainment. The game ended up haunting the dreams of a lot of kids. Phantasmagoria was so controversial that multiple organizations called for a boycott of the game. But even after all that, the game was a commercial success.
Of course, the controversy worked its magic, and the game went on to sell over 1 million copies.
Reading controversy
I didn't know that.
Is something the games in our next chapter do very well. But unlike Phantasmagoria, these games weren't made to make money. They were made to offend as many people as possible, even
I'm gonna be honest, I loved Newgrounds.
the victims of real-life tragedies.
Newgrounds was funny. There was a lot of good Newgrounds that were funny.
2020, Adobe Flash Player, which was a program used for many online games, was officially discontinued. Unless your page had certain
do you want me to react to something? I can.
And you couldn't play Flash games anymore. But with the end of Flash came one game that took the world by storm, Friday Night Funkin'. In 2021, Friday Night Funkin' went viral as a rhythm game with an art style inspired by many Flash games that came before it.
It was everywhere. YouTube, TikTok, mod pages, bootleg merch, Roblox, in-class talent shows.
At a time when people were stuck in lockdown, Friday Night Funkin's early 2000s aesthetics reminded players of the good old days. It unleashed new life into Newgrounds, the biggest community of Flash animations and games. This helped the new generation of young gamers rediscover an old part of internet culture, including its darker sides. You see,
Yeah, Newgrounds had a entire area of dark, messed up games.
Character in Friday Night Funkin' is Pico. What a lot of players don't realize is that Pico is originally from a different game called Pico School. Developed by Tom Fulp, the founder of Newgrounds himself, Pico School was released way back in 1999. You play as Pico, a survivor of a school tragedy. The goal of the game is to defeat the perpetrators behind the tragedy and save the school. It's also based on a real-life incident that happened that same year in 1999. But even then, Pico School is only the tip of the iceberg compared to some of Newgrounds' darkest titles. There were several other Flash games on the site that were also inspired by real-life tragedies. Unlike Pico School, games like VTech Rampage put you in the shoes of the perpetrator. To beat these games, the players had to commit atrocities similar to what happened in real life. Worst of all, they even featured characters who shared the same identity as the victims in real life. When asked why these games were made, the creator who made both of them said, "Because it's funny."
Making so many
Some people take dark humor a bit too far. There's dark humor, then there's just degenerate humor, and I think we can all agree for the most part and say some of this humor is going too far because it goes out of its way to hurt people.
angry has won me
Humor should never cause harm.
enough points for the rest of my.
That is to say, it's okay for slapstick humor because physical pain humor is a thing, but we're talking about mental. We don't want to cause mental pain. Yes, let's remind the parents of their kids dying as a joke. You see how that's messed up?
These games stirred up a storm of controversy that family members of the victims even responded.
Yeah, see? You can do funny, dark humor without basically stabbing a parent in the heart. Because do you think those parents want to relive that? That's not good.
Absolutely disgusting that somebody thinks this is funny. And we're all suffering. All the families are suffering.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think a lot of people would agree that you can make jokes about pretty much anything, even big tragedies after a while, but personal tragedies are kind of the one thing I feel should be off the table. Because that's hurting someone at the expense of something funny.
Because Newgrounds values the artistic freedom of its creators, a lot of these games can still be played on the site today. Whether or not you agree with it, Newgrounds can be seen as a kind of time capsule preserving both the good and bad sides of the internet. And for a lot of kids in the early 2000s, it was their childhood, even if some ended up getting scarred from it. This was also the case for our next game, a real-life horror game. What happens if the video game you're playing isn't just a game anymore? What if you yourself become a character in a video game? These were the questions thousands of kids came face to face back in 2008 in the browser game Hotel 626. Back then, rumors spread online of a creepy browser game that you could only play between 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., forcing you to play it at night. Hence the name Hotel 626. If you head to hotel626.com, you'll be brought to a page where you have to type in your personal details. In order to play the game, you even had to turn on your webcam and microphone. Once you type everything in, the game starts. Hotel 626 was an FMV browser game, so the graphics used real-life footage. The game gives you a series of tasks, with each one being more extreme than the last. One of them even needs you to use your microphone to sing a lullaby to a baby. If you fail, you'll get jump scared. But it's the fourth task that completely paralyzed players in fear.
What you see next is hanging Polaroids of faces from other players. At the start of the game, when you click agree to using your webcam, your picture is taken without your knowledge, and you are now on one of these Polaroids. You have to quickly look through rows of faces until you see yourself and click on it.
So after seeing your own photo taken without you even knowing, how could it possibly get worse? Unfortunately, the answer to that question comes when your phone in real life starts to ring. And when you pick it up, this is what you'll hear. The game tells you the instructions for the next task by calling your real number. Following the instructions will lead you outside of the hotel and into a car. As you start up the engine, the game ends, right before one last jump scare. But even after the game ends, the horror doesn't, because some players reported getting a phone call days after playing the game. The voice in the call told them you never really left the hotel. There's no real escape from its horrors. Hotel 626 was a
Well, that's messed up.
horror experience that went beyond the four corners of your screen. Sadly, Hotel...
I don't know. I feel like that's just a more extreme version of... Is that, like... I don't know if you can include that with all these others. Hard to say.
26.com was shut down in 2011. The game can no longer be played today. That's because this entire game was a marketing stunt from Doritos. That's right, the game was made by Doritos to promote their black pepper jack and smokin' cheddar barbecue flavors.
That's hilarious.
The URL hotel626.com was printed on the back of the packaging, which is how kids found out about the game. Doritos ended up making a sequel for Hotel 626 called Asylum 626, but it didn't have the same publicity as the first game. It shut down alongside Hotel 626 in 2011. This may be for the best, since what these games did with your private information crossed the line. While Hotel 626...
It sounds like it was just like a pre-recorded message that played. Like, it called you, played that message, then ended, kind of thing. I doubt they saved your information from that.
Messes with the player in real life. The video game in our next chapter messes with the player's mind. The game is so twisted, it even made some kids physically sick. The dangers of dark Roblox games.
Dark Roblox games, guys.
For horror games, Roblox isn't the site that comes to
Roblox.
Graphics can't compare it to classic horror titles, so most games on Roblox aren't as immersive. After all, the majority of its user base is kids. The horror games that you can find on
Remember how there were so many video game movies? Well, back then they were easy to make, so some corpus did the same to promote their products.
Roblox are a hit or miss, but there's one title that stood out from the rest. A game is so terrifying, some players even reported feeling sick. This game is called My Eyes Deceive. You play as a girl who's been living inside a basement her whole life, which already feels uncomfortable. The very first task the game gives you is to take your pills, and for the rest of the gameplay boils down to just interacting with objects. But at the end of each day in the game, before you sleep, you're tasked with talking to Papa, but he's never seen and rather hidden. The conversation with him takes place near the hatch of the basement. We learn from Papa that the outside world is a dangerous place and the pills we take are for our own safety. But halfway through the game, Papa never shows up at the hatch. Eventually, you have to decide if you want to keep taking your pills or not. This is where things take a turn for the worse. You, the player, start to realize what's really unfolding when your character's asleep. The game suggests that the father was doing terrible acts. And for a lot of players who played the game to its end, they're left sick to their stomachs. My Eyes Deceive is a psychological horror game that's hard to play just because of how twisted the story storytelling gets. There's a lot of similarities between the game and the real-life case of Elizabeth Fritzl, a woman who was locked for 24 years in the basement by her father. My Eyes Deceived was eventually removed from Roblox. While a lot of people thought that it was because of the content, this wasn't the case. It was originally released on itch.io by an indie developer called Nowadev. One Roblox user asked Nowadev if they could recreate My Eyes Deceive on Roblox, which is how it came to be on the platform. And it got so popular that even big YouTubers like Markiplier played it. Nowadev felt upset that his original version on itch.io got completely overshadowed by the Roblox version.
That's messed up.
And so he wanted it taken down. At the end of the day, children's safety should always be top priority. But that will never stop some creators from developing absolutely horrible games like some of the violent and disgusting reenactments we've talked about. If you see young ones consuming gaming content that they probably shouldn't, educate them, because you never know. It may make a bigger impact on their future than you think. Thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Play it for free on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox now by using my link below. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months get a massive bonus pack, including premium vehicles. And until the end of January, all players can get 3 exclusive Gaijin snail decals. Wait, before you go, click this playlist to watch more videos.
The thing is, parents are, at the end of the day, are the ones that need to do that. But yeah, that was a visual venture about those some pretty dark games. Give it a like if you enjoyed the video.
A new law has just made Steam lock adult games behind credit cards. Not age verification, not an ID check, but credit cards. And here's the real irony of this story. The very same payment companies that forced Steam to change their rules are actually now Valve's solution to a fun bit of UK regulation that everyone on the internet has heard about, the Online Safety Act. And of course, people have heard about it because it impacts the UK. These are global companies. But there's a problem. 32% of UK adults don't have credit cards. That means a lot of Steam users are now locked out completely. Now, Valve says that they've...
Do I feel cute? I'd feel cuter if I had Silk Song. But yeah, I kind of feel a little cute today.
met their legal obligations, but
time to start the Boca Silk Song play. Nah, I'm okay.
We tested them, and it's a much messier picture than it seems, to the point where on an unverified account we've been able to access content that, well, it seems, per the Online Safety Act, we shouldn't be able to. And look, once fully in, this law carries fines of 10% of global revenue.
I don't think that should be allowed. I've said this before, right? I don't think any state, any country should be allowed to charge a company that's based in another country with global revenue. You can charge them based on your country's revenue, but you can't charge them based on the entire world's revenue. Because there might be other countries that don't require them to do that. Oh, no, they definitely don't. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't... This is pretty, what's the word? I would say this is pretty, like, bad. Right. Okay, now I can sit back a little bit.
For a company like Valve, that is billions. Now, personally, I don't want to see Valve get screwed by an impractical draconian law that I don't...
It is very draconian. Like I was saying, like, I don't think they should be allowed to... I don't think they should be allowed to do that. How's my YouTube chat? YouTube has not graced us with their presence yet. My YouTube is up, right? Alright, go check my YouTube real quick.
Support that's now leading to the UK wanting to basically find a way of dealing with VPNs. That means that this story matters. This is a law that inconveniences users. It opens up loads of privacy risks.
It's up. Okay, you're good then, Ari.
Frankly, it's just not practical, and it may even make things worse for online safety, because it will force things underground. And that means we've got to talk about it. Valve says they're complying with the UK's Online Safety Act as of August.
Hi, Alan.
The Steam support pages now explain the new reality to us, and when we go there, we see that UK users must undergo, quote, age assurance to access mature content games and their community hubs. What does that mean? Well, it means age verification. And we always knew that this was coming, but as we pointed out when the law took effect, Steam quite simply was not ready for compliance. Now, do you remember their old system? It was a tick box whenever you made your account to confirm that you were over the age of 13. And keep that number in mind because we're going to come back to it. They also blocked direct messaging until you had spent $5 on the platform, but of course, gift cards can actually bypass that. Adult content filters were on by default for new accounts, but obviously anyone could easily opt out of that. None of these measures were solidly compliant with the law. Valve knew they would draw attention the very moment a kid accessed something that they shouldn't. I'm sure you can imagine, as an example, the Daily Mail headlines that would animate the government. Here's the thing, Steam already had one advantage for this. They already had users' payment card information, and the UK government had approved that as a form of verification. So it's no surprise how Valve decided to solve that problem. Credit card verification is the policy, and credit card ownership is limited to 18-year-olds in the United Kingdom. Now, Ofcom have confirmed that it's a, quote, highly effective age verification method, and they say that among all age assurance mechanisms reviewed by Valve, that this process preserves the maximum degree of user privacy. Now, you can already register a card to your Steam account, and that means that to implement this rule, no new user data gets stored. If there is a verification issue, Steam says that you should talk to your bank first, and after you've done that, then talk to them. But they also suggest something quite interesting.
Hello there, yes, I am late. Yeah! All of you, wait!
Running up a credit card bill should, quote, act as an additional deterrent to account sharing. It's a bit weird, and to some users, parts of this seem a little bit ridiculous. They've got 2-decade-old Steam accounts, so why would they need age verification now? Their Steam account is literally old enough to be of age. A simple answer, Valve is not a trustworthy source to the UK government. Now, others wonder why Valve don't follow the likes of Discord, Reddit, or Nexus mods. Those platforms are using services like...
What I think is all these companies need to help Reddit. Because I think, isn't it Reddit that's suing the UK government for overstepping their bounds?
Yoti or KID.
Yeah, Silksong released today.
Or faces to do verification. And they're doing that for a reason.
How
Here's
I
why.
wish to be
It is
playing
about
it.
what each system allows. So Discord has got 3 verification states. Unverified, teen, which is between the ages of 13 and 18, and of course, adult. Basically, they need the granularity. Discord wants to keep under 13s as an audience, whilst of course also protecting them legally and being compliant with this law. But Valve aren't doing that. They've created a binary system. Either you access all content, or mature content gets blocked. That's basically it. Now, this approach was probably faster and cheaper for Valve to implement versus integrating a third-party provider and, having to strike up.
What they want to do is force these people to use the third-party providers. Because one of these big third-party providers are the reason this law is even getting place. From what I understand, Steam Store is crashing? Like right now? But probably because of Silksong. But, one of those companies, Ofcom, is a security firm. And they're the ones that are pushing it to be a law. And they got so many people in the government that they're basically trying to force everyone to accept them as an option.
Business with a new vendor. Plus, there is the sort of poetic justice here that it is the very same credit card companies that pushed Valve to change their rules that they are now handling user verification for Valve. So,
which in itself is not good.
Hey, I guess Valve's kind of making their opponents work for them, and that's a little bit satisfying. But there is, as always, an asterisk to this. Does it actually work? It doesn't.
Oh.
We kind of broke it immediately.
Is it that bad?
We tested this ourselves. We used a Steam account with a debit card linked and a PayPal linked. Neither of those are acceptable to the UK regulator, and both can be accessed by under 18s. That means there's no credit card attached. And the result is, on first glance, what you'd expect. This account can no longer access mature content games. If you try to...
I'm not adding a credit card to my account.
Page, you will be blocked, and you'll get a new...
Of course it would be.
...to add a credit card, and TLDR of why you'd have to do this.
It's like the most anticipated game for years now.
For this is it doesn't seem to be based on user tags. And sadly, this does mean that, as an example, you can't mass tag Hello Kitty Island Adventure as BDSM, you know, for a laugh. So it's altogether more troll-proof like this, and the ratings are likely part of the content questionnaire that all developers have got to fill out in Steam. We've talked about this before, age ratings, and it broadly succeeds at its goal. Unverified
I agree, I am late.
access mature content games.
Hi, Midnight, I'm doing good. How are you?
But those games get to stay on Steam. Valve...
The thing is, the company that runs these... The ESRB... I don't trust them anymore with ratings because they're the ones that were like, well, it's not actually gambling. So they can be bought. They can quite literally be bought. What was hilarious is I had this argument with my dad's friend, because he was like, there's no gambling in video games. Sir, you don't even play video games. I tried to explain to him, I'm like, no, like quite literally there are games like Madden that are just pure gambling, that are like getting kids addicted.
Gets to comply with the legal requirements,
Thank you,
but
Salvador.
there's a little problem. The account that we made can actually access mature 18 plus rated games, which, you know, isn't really what was
I
kind of
have
intended.
a fan.
Baldur's Gate 3, Agony, and Hatred are all available without verification. So this new...
That doesn't make sense. Some of those are pretty, adult.
system doesn't act like, say, a shop clerk checking your ID before you go to buy Call of Duty. At least not currently. Without verification, you can't access games like Honey Pop or the unrated version of Agony. Anything explicitly framed as mature content is blocked. But obviously, there are some gray areas. Actually, it does get a little bit more dicey for Valve, because the store pages are blocked. As it turns out, that is not enough. The rough edges of this very rushed implementation are pretty damn clear here. So adult only is still a genre category on Steam, and our test account had opted in to seeing mature content generally. So basically, this unverified account can still access that genre page on the store. And you know what that means? Auto-playing trailers. What shall I say? Slapping meat. Screenshot galleries that appear whenever you hover over game titles, all of which can be incredibly not safe for work.
Oh yeah.
And, well, you've browsed around that tag, you don't need your imagination to think about why. Now, you still can't reach the actual store pages, because those are blocked, but the content is still visible in Steam's ecosystem. But for Valve, it actually gets a bit worse. You can install demos for these games if the install demo button appears on the main genre or featured pages. And you might remember that tool that Steam created for Steam Next Fest, where you could easily install demos without having to click through onto the store page. Well, that feature, which honestly is quite good, it's very convenient, I think we're all in favor of doing the things that we want with less clicks. Sadly, that feature could now get Steam in trouble with how it is currently implemented, because if unverified accounts can still access adult games this way...
I really hope we're able to get rid of this, because this just does not bode well for games in general if it goes any further. Right now, it looks really bad. Remember when Turok was rated 17+? Which Turok?
Then regulators may have a problem with it. And, well, they do seem to have a problem with quite a lot these days. And we haven't even addressed the bigger issue here. Steam only blocked access to mature content.
That's what I'm saying. Now comparable games are PG-13. Like... Nikkei is 12 plus. That's Japan. What do you mean?
Games and discussion areas, but the Online Safety Act also regulates how people talk
To be fair, I feel like 13 is when you should seriously start, like, learning this stuff. But the one for Nintendo 64, I don't think I ever saw that one.
to each other to protect kids. Now, Steam's existing policies on direct messages, forums, and user-posted content, those are not changing under the new rules, and that's where things get dicey, because Steam's existing policies on
My
DMs,
Gooner games are
forums, and
gone?
user-posted
Yes,
content
Kohaku. They're
aren't
taking them from
changing
you.
under
They're taking all your
these
Gooner
rules.
games,
So
Kohaku.
right now, in theory,
You can't be a sussy fox anymore.
an unverified user
You and Slime will have to desus.
can still access parts of Steam with content about bullying, coercion, and drug advocacy that is illegal in the United Kingdom. So, you know, you could go onto a TF2 server and maybe somebody plays a voice clip that says, "Smoke weed every day." Bam! Feds come through your door. Not exactly, but you get the point. Then there's the wider conversation. What if you simply don't have a credit card? Remember, 32% of UK adults don't have a credit card, and those people often have good reasons. Some are protecting themselves from financial...
Yeah, like, I don't know. I never understood that. Why are you taking out sex ed and home ec classes? Like, those are important. What?
risk. Yes, you could just say, be responsible with your credit, Fivehead, and that's fair enough, but if it's still a struggle, not having a credit card is fairly useful. Just like if you want to help yourself sticking in your diet, maybe don't.
Yeah.
Load your pantry full of chocolate bars, right? You get the point. But for those people, well, they're now cut off here. They either engage with that financial model or they lose access to that part of Steam. And this
They want that to happen, though, Squirrel. Think about it. It's to protect the kids, but does it protect the kids? No, it doesn't. I wonder what it actually protects. It protects the adults?
This is especially problematic
I'm
given
getting in trouble for doing the thing?
some new reports. These reports show that this applies to store pages
Gasp.
for games that you already own. Now, you can seemingly keep playing your game, but you better hope that game doesn't have expansions to buy, and of course you better hope that you've already left your review, because you won't be able to access that unless you have a credit card. And this is likely just the beginning. Steam have already told users that they will be dealing with problems as they arise, so, well, all the things that I've mentioned today are probably on their mind, because as this law moves from its initial implementation to basically the various levels of enforcement that will roll out over months, Valve will very much want to avoid the fines that can come with it. And this is the kind of risk that happens.
Which I don't think they should be even allowed to do. I think Steam needs to join Reddit in this lawsuit.
When, well, you're operating a massive platform. Which is what
That'll just pull out of the UK entirely.
Valve is now theoretically complying with the Online Safety Act.
Because I bet you anything, if you pull out of the UK entirely, you'll get gamers in on
The
the...
majority of the British public supports it, unfortunately. And just like with other examples...
Wait, what?
Plans to repeal this law. A majority of the British public supports...
That's a lie. These two numbers, flip them. Flip them. I bet you anything that these are flipped. Because this is by the government site. And yeah, like, why are you even allowing 65 to have a say in this? These numbers right here, absolutely flip them. I would even say flip these numbers. Because this right here, these two numbers right here don't make sense. Not for what I know about British people and stuff.
Fortunately. And just like with other examples, like say in Germany and Brazil with age restrictions,
The average age of members of parliament who voted on the Online Safety Act was 68. Yeah. I bet you $1,000 per person, doubled each time, that every person you ask on the street that's under the age of 40, no, under the age of 35, which would be the majority of your people that work, would say, no, I don't support this.
Valve will comply with the law, and that means that they are now held to the law. That also means they'll have to address any complaints against that law's standards. We know that Valve will keep making changes to avoid more risk, because obviously, look at the fines involved with this law. And reports are already
I don't think they should be allowed to
that
fine
they're
you,
telling adult
honestly.
game makers something new, that they can no longer use early access as a business model, because again, early access means the contents of the game, well, can be changing. So if a dev slips in a few nips, oh dear, now the game would be in violation. That's obviously frustrating to those developers who maybe would want to use the early access business model. And it's not like I'm blaming Valve.
That's what's hilarious. Like, parental software exists. Like, you can easily control these things. Thank you for the pasta check. And thank you for the lurky, Reboot. And BB.
For this, they're tightening their grip because they basically have to, and they also want to avoid any further challenges from payment processors. So they got the payment processor problem,
but
they've got problems with the law.
I have news for you on that front too.
It's hard to do it all right.
Alien
and the
bastards.
flaws in the system that I've highlighted today, those are not about us trying to tattle on Valve or get them in trouble. What we're showing is the depth of change needed to comply with this legislation. And remember, this is legislation that, as an example, Wikipedia has recently had a fairly large loss against. It's one that has actually just caused some sites to go down, to just pull their content or not be in the UK because they just can't really deal with the risk. And compliance isn't easy. These platforms were built before this law was a thing. A lot of deep systemic changes will have to happen. And this story is evidence of that, of all the different edge cases on Steam that probably make them violate the law even though they've made this change. And Valve will want to be careful because they could be made an example. The threat matters here. Remember, the threat is a fine of 10% of Valve's global revenue. That's a massive threat, and being banned in the UK, that also loses you quite a lot of money.
What's funny is, like, people won't do it themselves. They want the government, which is notoriously known to overstep its bounds, to do it, which makes no sense. You know, only idiots have...
Steam cannot take that lightly. Right now, it is unfortunate that its end users who basically get most of the downsides here, and that this is a law that ultimately, be it with VPNs or other solutions, anyone...
And they're trying to outlaw VPNs.
And that means that it's probably, maybe less people will be exposed to content they shouldn't be exposed
Yeah, imagine
to.
parents actually
Maybe
having to
the
parent.
driving of things underground and the incentives for users
Like, God
to find
forbid.
loopholes and workarounds will mean that people...
I think if you have a kid, you legally have to take, like, a parenting class, and then they review you every year.
exposed to more extreme things that is not out in the daylight, that resides where we can't find it on the internet.
Exactly.
That sort of thing
Squirrel.
is deeply concerning. I think it's the type of second order effect.
Every year's a bit much.
Governments
I would say it's either every year or not at all, because people will get too comfortable and just get lazy. Otherwise, like every year, like right before Christmas. So it's like every 11 months or so. Oh, every 12 months. Starting on like the date, like December 1st until like December 3rd. You get checked to make sure you're... Yeah, make them take a course before their kid turns 5. Basically check them. But yeah. Gotta love that. Gotta love how, like, people being lazy has led to this. Now we gotta be unlazy as gamers and correct it. That was Bellular!